NBA with so much controversy erupting after Rockets GM Daryl Morey tweeted his support for the anti-government protesters in Hong Kong. But that's only one side of the story when there is a visit like this. And the other side is that we have a lot of former NBA players, legends, who come along to these global games. So let's talk about that for now. David Robinson, I'm so thrilled to welcome you here.
Thank you.
Of course, with Richard Jefferson as well. We were joking before we started rolling about, I was going to say,
Richard.
we have a historic Spurs player here and also David Robinson.
Go.
But you were Richard's favorite player growing up, and I want Richard to tell the people how you express this.
Growing up in Phoenix, like David, when he first came into the league, he was my favorite player forever. And here we are. I knew this was going to be his last year, and we're playing in the NBA Finals.
This is the 2003 NBA Finals.
It was literally the last 2-3 minutes of the game, and at this point in time, I reached over and I was just like, hey, now that this is all over, I can tell you that you were my favorite player growing up. Congratulations.
You guys there's a free throw going on. The game is still happening.
No, but we were about to lose the NBA Finals, and I'm playing against he was one of the reasons why I started playing basketball, one of the reasons why I love the game. And
so it's your fault we have to deal with him, is basically what he's saying.
That's a blessing.
So for me to have that opportunity to be in the NBA Finals as a 22-year-old, and then to tell my icon on his last game that he was my favorite player. I know there's a competitive side to it, but part of me was just
I already felt old, but when you said that to me, I felt like, wow.
I'm 40 now. I'm about to turn 40, but no, that was a special moment. I know it was for you because you won a championship, but to be able to tell my favorite player.
I'm sure he doesn't even remember that title. He just remembers that moment.
Now that you show it to me, I remember.
I do remember that.
No, that's awesome. That was a really special moment. I mean, obviously my last game, my last NBA game, and an unbelievable moment in my life there. So that was very cool.
Absolutely. Now Tim Duncan was the MVP of that NBA Finals. He is now I'm just saying.
It is what it is.
He has now rejoined the Spurs as an assistant coach.
Yeah. No, that's great.
And there are some people who are sort of like, okay, we know he was a great Spur. We know his connection still with the organization. But as an assistant coach, you do need to be somewhat vocal.
Well, it's not that he's not vocal. I mean, Richard will tell you. I mean, he's great with the guys, and he projects a confidence and a. I mean, it's just when you're with Tim, you feel like you're going to win. I mean, he just brings that to the table, and he brings professionalism. He brings a focus, kind of a Pop, a no nonsense kind of a mentality, and I think that's going to play on those young guys because that's the thing we're missing right now. That leadership in that locker room to make sure that, hey, let's take this to the next level. And I think he'll bring that. He'll help those guys understand what that takes, because it's more than just about going out there and putting up numbers. There's guys on bad teams scoring 20 and 10 every night. Nobody really cares.
Right.
What they care about is, can you raise the level of other guys up to play better? And I think Tim is obviously one of the best guys ever to do that.
Yeah. Did you see that coming at all? Because
no.
He texted me, when I saw it, I texted him. I was like, for my entire life, I've always told people you were the smartest player I've been around, and this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen you do.
Well, I'm like, Tim, did you read the job description? I'm not really sure you understand. But you know what? He just loves being in the gym. He loves basketball.
He was running sprints the other day. Did you guys see the video? Tim Duncan's in the corner running sprints.
But he loves Pop. I mean, it does make sense when you think about it. And he knows the game. I mean, there's a lot of things that make sense. But his personality, and you think, you're not really sure this is what you want to do. But hey, enjoy it. No, he's going to be great. I do think he's going to be a great influence in that locker room, and that's what they need. When you see Manu and Tony and Tim walk out of that locker room, it's like a vacuum of leadership that just sucks the life out of it. So now he can help bring some of that back.
We've been lucky enough to have you on the jump a few times. One of them was Kawhi's final season with the Spurs. Yeah. And you expressed some frustration at that point, really just at not really being able to talk to him and not knowing what was going on. Yeah. What was it like for you to then watch his season in Toronto and the great success he had there, and then watch him go to the Clippers?
It was what he did last year was unbelievable. I mean, really, he took a team that wasn't even in the discussion for a championship to the title, and that's a legendary type of thing. And it's from watching him in San Antonio for years. I always told people he's the best two-way player in the league. And then people were saying, oh, well, LeBron, or no, this guy is the best two-way player in the league. So I guess I'm not overly surprised. I mean, clearly, the way he left San Antonio, we were hoping he was like the heir apparent. He was going to, continue to take us to the next level. But it didn't work out that way. And so I was really happy to see him be able to go and fulfill that promise that he has showed in San Antonio and kind of prove to everybody, hey, what I did in San Antonio wasn't just because of Tim or, Manu and those. I mean, he is a great player. And so I was happy for him. Sad for our franchise a little bit, but, we're doing our thing.
Yeah, one of the things I want to talk about was parity. Now that we were talking about Kawhi a little bit earlier, and now that you see there is no Miami Heat, there is no Golden State Warriors, there is no evil empire. Do you think that I personally like the evil empire?
I do too. I do too. No,
he was part of the dynasty.
You got to have the bad guys. You got to have something to shoot for. It really makes everybody better. When we used to play against, the Utah Jazz, we hated them, they were the enemy, but they made us play better, and we had to rise to that level. And then you had Chicago Bulls waiting past that, and you're like, okay, what do we have to do, man? What do we have to do? So now it's, I'm with you. I like having the guys up there, like, we're going to take those guys down, man.
Take them down now. I agree, but, like, who do you see in this group now? And there's been a lot of changes. Yeah. Is there anybody that you see that kind of stands out to you that you're like, I think that team is going to be the team that can kind of run it for a year or two? You
know what, to be honest with you, there's not one team that I could say for sure. I mean, I think that's going to make this season exciting and interesting, but, I mean, you look at what Kawhi did last year with a team that wasn't in the running, and now you got a team that has some pretty good pieces and a good coach. I got to say the Clippers are kind of my dark horse to kind of get it done. I still wouldn't count out the Warriors. I mean, Draymond's great, and I mean, they get Klay Thompson back. They're still pretty tough. I mean, they won 72 games without Durant, so they're not that bad.
I remember.
73.
Yeah, we remember. And then with the Lakers, you got two monsters in there. So you can't count those guys out. So it's an interesting group this year. I don't really know where to look.
Well, I love that you're here officially as an NBA ambassador, but when it comes to you, David, I don't think there's any question, an ambassador for the entire sport. We are so grateful to you for being here today. Thank you so much. We'll back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Rachel, thank you very much. Great job with the Admiral, you and Richard Jefferson. So I want to talk about another potential dark horse title candidate here. Let's talk about the Houston Rockets. Russell Westbrook made his preseason Rockets debut last night, scoring 13 points in 21 minutes. James Harden scored his usual 34 points as well. So, Janae, what were your first impressions of the Rockets' new tandem?
Well, I think it's still James Harden's team. Clearly, 21 points in the first quarter, like 7 for 8 starting the game. So, yeah, it's still James's team. I think the good in Russell Westbrook is that we saw his explosion, like how he was able to just push and go coast to coast and scoop and lay it in. But I think the bad is just that when Russell Westbrook and PJ Tucker were on the floor together, I think they only shot 1 for 10 from 3. So if you're thinking about James and his game, his ability to cook, it's because they're always spread the floor with shooters, and then they have one rim protector and also Dunker and Clint Capella. So if you have those two non-shooters per se, even though, he gets this nice little ISO jumper here, will that affect James Harden's game and production now watching this preseason game? Probably not so much, because he can play one-on-one from the top of the key, but as the season progresses, shooting is going to be really important for the Rockets.
I completely agree. I think the way Russ shoots the ball this year is going to be imperative on how far they make it, because like she said, they can completely shrink the floor in certain situations, and that's tough. Obviously Russ is the vet and he knows how to create and cut and do other things, but his ability to knock down the three-point ball is going to be important. But I'm a fan of the situation. I really think this can work. One, because these guys are friends. Normally if your teammates is cool, but when you're really friends, there's a different kind of level of execution and commitment you're going to do and sacrifice for each other. And you got to think if they end up staggering their minutes at one point, you're always going to have one of these two guys on the court, and that in itself is a nightmare. So like I said, if they can figure out their chemistry together, they're going to be a problem in the West.
Do you guys think that they'll increase their pace offensively? Because the last couple years they've kind of slowed things down a little bit. Do you think that because Russ is there, all of a sudden that this thing will get faster?
Russ is going regardless.
Yeah.
So you can stay,
Russ going to run.
Yeah, so either stay with him or he's going to shoot it. You know what I mean? So I definitely think the way Russ plays, obviously a different style of pace than when Chris played. Even though Chris was a runner, Russ is, like a road runner. If you got to stay with Russ. But like I said, it's going to be interesting finding out, picking and choosing, when is it James's time, when is it Russ's time, and that's all stuff they're going to have to work out between themselves. But like I said, if they can get that down, they're a scary team in the West.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Coming up, Kevin Durant tells a New York radio station, quote, "The cool thing right now is not the Knicks."
Ooh.
Does the new Brooklyn Net have a point? We'll get back here in just a few moments. Stick around on The Jump.
something.